So 6 years ago, on a Monday afternoon, I was standing by the stove cooking dinner when the phone rang. My wife answered the phone, and I could tell from just one side of the conversation that our years of preparation to become foster parents was coming to reality when we got a call that a 6-day-old little girl needed to be picked up and given a home. Over the last 6 years, I've had a wonderful opportunity to get to know all of the various facets of the foster care system here in Los Angeles County. But my private and professional life come together with one of those statistics. Less than 4% of emancipating foster youth in the United States ever receive a college diploma. Less than 4%. As a college administrator and college professor, when I hear a statistic like that, I ask myself what we, as higher education administrators and professors, must do differently. What can we do as a society with that statistic? Now, I often meet students here in my role as professor that are what we call first-gen students. These are the first-generation students and their families to go to college. One common thread with all of those students is that they have amazing family support. They have families that say, yes, you are the first-generation student in our family to go to college, but you will go to college. What do we do when there are a whole host of children that, because of situations in their life that were completely out of their control, were never given that ticket in order to redeem that future of a college education? We all know that a college education is that ticket to have higher pay, to have a better paying job, to have a better career, to be a productive member of society. But when a child is taken out of their home without any of their own responsibility, that ticket sometimes is taken from them. Molly McGrath Tierney, she was a social services director in Boston in 2014, delivered a TEDx talk where she questioned the entire foster care system. Now, she has some very global perspectives. She has some concerns about the self-perpetuating nature of foster care, and she has some very important insights to consider for policymakers and for massive overhaul with the system. But until that massive overhaul happens, there are situations before us right now that we must attend to. And as those in this room today who have had college as part of your identity, it is up to us to think about how we can reach out to those children and invite them to our table. Recently, I heard about a college athlete, or actually soon-to-be athlete, that as a sophomore in high school has already signed a commitment letter for something that's going to happen several years away. What can we do to take children 13, 14, 15 years old and help them with a nice pathway from high school into college? One of the problems and one of the reasons why this long-term planning doesn't happen is there's just simply not enough homes for foster children. From 2005 to 2015, according to the Chronicle of Social Change, the number of foster homes in America declined by 52%. Think about that statistic, 52% decline in foster homes in the United States. When social workers are merely trying to find homes for these children, that long-term planning to think, how can we have them resourced and ready for college, just simply doesn't happen. So with a focus on education, we often think of the 3 R's of education: reading, writing, arithmetic. I want each of us in this room today to have our own little education, our own 3 R's of what we're going to do with emancipating foster youth and college. We need to respond to the reality. We need to resource these children, and we need to risk changing everything we think about with higher education and with our relationships as a society. Responding. We have here the cap, a symbol of college graduation. Do foster children not want to go to college? That is not true. 84% of foster children, when asked, say they want to go to college someday. That's a great percentage. That's a great percentage of desire of people who want to come to college and want to be given this ticket for a successful life. The problem is only 50% of foster children will graduate by the age of 18. They simply do not graduate with their peers. So when their peers are 18 with those college aspirations, they don't have that opportunity. Well, why has the number of students graduating at a time declined? 34% of foster children will go to more than 5 different schools while they're in the system. If you are one of these 34% that has gone to 5 different schools, your ability to form those stable relationships with guidance counselors, with teachers, with other important people in your community that make going to college possible just don't happen. And when you don't have those voices giving you that aspiration, something has got to give, and that's going to be college. Well, ultimately, of the foster youth that eventually get a high school diploma, only 20% then go to college. So yes, they have received now a high school diploma, sometimes post-18, but they never go to college. Only 20% of them do. Of those 20% that eventually do, that means for all of the emancipating foster youth, only 6% will ever go to college. Just to give you some numbers, in the United States, there's about 20,000 emancipating foster youth every year. Here in LA County, it's about 4,000. So if only 6% of them ever make their way to college, you can just start imagining the kind of situations we're going to have. Well, all told, that means that of these children that are leaving the system that have been our children, only 4% will ever get a college degree. I say our children because we need to take responsibility for this. When a child has been detained from their home, that means we as a society have said that is an unsafe place to be, and that means all of us in society now need to take the responsibility of helping that child. As you've noticed, the cap is diminished. We have gone from a place where 84% of them want to go to college down to only 4% of them ever being able to go to college. How are we going to respond to that reality? Resourcing. When it comes to going to college, it doesn't begin at 18. Think in your own lives. What were the conversations you had from childhood as you grew up that made going to college something that was on your radar? Personally, whenever I travel for business, I usually will buy a college t-shirt of whatever locale I'm at. So my children have University of Oregon, University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Oxford, Cambridge. I could go on and on. My children, from even the outfits they will wear playing around the house, have college on their radar. Azusa Pacific University is their only choice, but they do have college on their radar. So those are little things we do in a family to just start putting college on the radar. I remember when I was a child, an older gentleman in my church came up to me and said, "Someday I'm going to call you doctor." I think he may have meant medical doctor, so I may sorely disappoint him. But even those little conversations put an aspirational vision in your mind of what your life can look like. What can we do to resource these children to make those aspirational realities? Well, let me give 4 items of things that we need to resource these children. Number 1, we need to make sure all of these children meet college admission standards. Here in California, we have things called the A to G standards that will mean that they are California State or University of California ready. What can we do as a society with service organizations like Rotary, Kiwanis, local faith communities, higher ed institutions to come around our local school districts to say, we are going to partner with you and help you through this time during your, say, 9th to 12th grade years. My own university here, in a district that historically has seen our local community with lower college-headed children, said we are going to lean into that. And our university, in partnership with financial support from the local Rotary Club, put on something annually called College Headed and Mighty Proud, our CHAMP program for local 4th graders. 4th graders getting that vision of college. In 8th grade, we follow up in partnership with other local universities and colleges in the area and have an 8th grade majors fair so that children at 8th grade can start getting a vision of the types of degrees that are out there. Because many 8th graders, their whole thought of college is doctor, lawyer, or if I don't want to go to college, I'll be in law enforcement. They have a very narrow view of what college is, but we expand that to let them see all the possibilities that are out there. Number 2, we need to make sure that college applications are streamlined. I mentioned earlier about these commitment letters that have been done with athletics. Maybe it's time for us to partner with the local Department of Children and Family Services and start working with 14, 15, 16-year-olds as higher ed institutions to lean in and say, who are children that really desperately want to go to college and they just need to be mentored through those turbulent years of high school. Help them through filling out financial aid forms, helping them with the application process. For all of you that have done college admissions, you know that the stack of forms that families, intact families, need to do can sometimes be overwhelming. Now put that on the shoulders of a teenager who may not have the greatest family support with a foster family or other organization to try to navigate that system. We must be able to make that system more streamlined. Third, we need to provide basic life skills. And this is, again, one where all of us can come together. All of us can come together and resource these children. Life skills like budgeting, loans, healthcare issues, how to, as I mentioned, just navigate the banking system, how to take out a checking account, how to get a car and a driver's license. These very simple skills that people just naturally come by in families are not often readily available to the foster child that is in our foster care system in our local area. The fourth item is we have to do better at providing a family environment for these children. I know many of you in this room may not be able to be foster parents yourselves, but there are many opportunities out there. There are organizations like CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates, that you can get involved with. There are programs like Dawn of Hope and United Friends of Children here in Los Angeles that are partnering to try to help children through those situations. My own alma mater, where I did my graduate work, UCLA, is creating a new concept called Bruin Village, where they are helping during the summers to take foster children on campus and get them college ready. There are so many things that we can do to help partner with our local agencies to make this happen, because we want to put faces on these caps. Responding, resourcing, risking. Our view of higher education may be some of the problem. As I mentioned, we're often set up that we are ready to receive those when they turn 18. We're ready to receive those when they have fulfilled certain standards. We're ready to receive those that have filled out certain applications and so on. But maybe it's time for us to rethink the whole education process so it becomes more partnership. Risking rebuilding our relationships in society so the Department of Children and Family Services, local education institutions, higher education, law enforcement, all of these different institutions are coming together for the good of these children. Just think of the way we often will talk about higher ed, the best and brightest, more selective, ivory tower. We often use language that says, you're not necessarily welcome here if you don't meet certain standards. Now, we definitely have to have standards for admission, but there are many foster children out there that, for no fault of their own, would have no problem fulfilling those requirements if it wasn't for the life situation that somebody else put them in. And how can we as a society, how can we as individuals say, I'm going to lean into that and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to risk my view of family. I'm going to risk my view of my own free time and personal time to say, I'm going to reach out and help this child go to college. 4% of emancipating foster youth will ever finish a college degree. I could just leave it at that and say, well, maybe college isn't for everybody. But the children that aren't going to college are not finding other productive avenues toward life. 25% of foster youth, when they leave the system without proper family housing, will eventually be homeless. 25% of foster males will eventually be incarcerated. Foster females who emancipate from the system are 6 times more likely to become pregnant than their non-foster peers during the college years. Overall, 65% of foster kids, when they leave the system, leave so without sufficient housing. What does that mean? That means we as a society will take care of them in other places. It might be in the jails. It might be in homeless shelters. It might be in drug addiction clinics. We will take care of these children, but are we willing to risk rethinking all of it? 6 years ago, my wife and I got a phone call about a 6-day-old little girl. And it probably would have been easy to say, this is my personal life, and here's my professional life. But this statistic of less than 4% that ever go to college makes it something that the lines are now blurred between my passion for foster care and my passion for higher education being available for all of these children. Will you join me on changing that statistic? Thank you.